All right, welcome everyone. Students of history, grab a seat and settle in for today's explainer. I'm going to be your lead archaeologist today as we uncover the historical anomalies of the Maluti temple complex. You know, deep in the forests of Jharkhand, there is this hidden architectural marvel, and it's been obscured not just by time, but by geography and modern conflict. So today, we're putting on our explorers' hats to carefully brush away the layers of a 17th century dynasty that left behind an absolutely extraordinary, yet mostly forgotten legacy. Let's dig in.
Here is the syllabus for today's dig. We're going to start with the site briefing, then move down through Stratum 1, the foundation myth, Stratum 2, the Terracotta boom, Stratum 3, the anomalies, and we'll finish up with modern conservation and ethics.
Okay, first things first. Section 1, the site briefing. Let's establish our geographic boundaries. To understand Maluti, we have to grasp the sheer scale of time we're dealing with here. Human habitation in the Santal Pargana region, which is right on the Jharkhand-West Bengal border, stretches incredibly far back. We are talking about ancient Paleolithic stone tools discovered right in the riverbed of the local Chila River. But the architectural wonders we're really focusing on today, they jump forward to a much later era. Their story begins under the 15th century Sultanate of Bengal, peaks in this massive construction boom between the 17th and 19th centuries, and then, well, it largely vanishes from the wider academic world. It actually wasn't until 1979 that a formal archaeological report on the site was finally published.
Now, take a look at this staggering number, 72. Originally, the royal family of this region constructed an unbelievable complex of 108 temples. It's like a giant puzzle of devotion. However, as the centuries rolled on and the family's wealth fluctuated, they just didn't have the funds for upkeep. Because of the harsh realities of time, weathering, and structural collapse, only 72 of these magnificent structures survive today in the Dumka district. And honestly, a lot of those are in pretty rough shape.
So, let's move down to our first historical layer. Section 2, Stratum 1, the foundation myth.
Every great historical site has a foundation myth, right? And Maluti is definitely no exception. According to local folklore, this entire sprawling temple complex exists basically because of a lost bird. Picture this. Back in the late 15th or early 16th century, the Sultan of Bengal, Alauddin Hussein Shah, was out hunting when his prized pet falcon, known locally as a Baj, flew off and got lost. Out of nowhere, a young local lad named Basanta Roy manages to catch the falcon and safely return it to the Sultan. The Sultan was so incredibly grateful that he just gifted the surrounding lands to this boy, elevating him to royalty on the spot and crowning him Raja Baj Basanta. That single random act established a royal lineage that would rule the area for generations, setting up Maluti as their capital.
Which brings us to our next layer, Section 3, Stratum 2, the Terracotta boom. All right, class, I want you to consider this architectural puzzle for a second. If you are a wealthy royal family trying to cement your legacy for eternity, why on earth would you construct your grand capital out of baked clay, terracotta, instead of long-lasting, durable stone?
Well, the answer, as is almost always the case in our field, lies purely in the dirt. The environment dictates the medium. The region surrounding Maluti features a really dense network of rivers and distributaries. And what does that mean? It means a virtually endless, extremely high availability of high-quality local clay. On the flip side, there is an almost complete absence of naturally occurring building stone in this specific area. So baking clay wasn't just some quaint artistic choice, it was literally the only logical, practical medium available to pull off these grand designs.
And they didn't just build plain walls. These artisans transformed that local river mud into massive three-dimensional storybooks. The 72 surviving temples are completely covered in these incredibly elaborate terracotta reliefs. We're talking epic Hindu narratives from the Mahabharata and the Ramayana pressed directly into the architecture. But perhaps even more importantly for us as historians, they included these vivid, detailed scenes of daily village life. It gives us a literal snapshot of society in the 17th to 19th centuries baked right into the earth. It is absolutely brilliant.
All right, now we reach my favorite part of the dig. Section 4, Stratum 3, the anomalies.
As we sift through the evidence, the most glaring anomaly at Maluti is the central figure of the royal family's worship, Goddess Mauliksha. Now, locals worship her as a form of the Hindu goddess Durga. But here's the catch. There is absolutely no reference to a goddess named Mauliksha in any traditional Hindu texts. No mention of her whatsoever. Plus, her physical representation is highly unusual. The deity lacks a body entirely. She exists solely as this striking red-colored head, and she's sculpted not from terracotta like everything else, but from laterite stone, fixed directly on the temple wall.
So what does this all mean? To solve this anomaly, experts zoomed out to look at the broader historical context of the region. Their main hypothesis is that Mauliksha wasn't originally a Hindu goddess at all, but was actually a deity from Vajrayana Buddhism. This is a Tantric form of Buddhism, known for its esoteric rituals, and it was highly prevalent in this exact region right up until the 15th century. Over time, as the religious landscape of the area naturally shifted, it's highly likely that Goddess Mauliksha was gradually assimilated and incorporated into the local Hindu pantheon.
So the crucial takeaway here is that the compiled evidence strongly suggests Maluti was likely a massive, syncretic Hindu-Buddhist Tantric center. And we see this supported all over the site. There's a local shrine to Bhairava, which is a wrathful form of Shiva, really important to Tantric traditions. We also see it in the much more recent historical figure of Bama Kepa. He was one of Bengal's greatest Tantric masters, living until 1911. He famously stayed right there at the Mauliksha temple to perform his rigorous sadhana, or penance. His actual trident is still sitting there at the site, actively worshipped to this day, which literally links the ancient past directly to a living tradition.
Let's bring things back to the surface. Section 5. Modern Conservation and Ethics. When we look at preservation, the contrast with other sites is really stark. Take the famous Terracotta temples of Bishnupur, for example. Highly accessible, well-known, heavily studied, and wonderfully preserved. Maluti, on the other hand, is hidden deep in a forest and has struggled immensely. Furthermore, sources report that the Dumka district has historically been heavily impacted by the radical left-wing Naxal insurgency. That ongoing conflict has severely hindered systematic archaeological excavation and kept these magnificent structures dangerously obscure for decades.
But despite these incredibly tough realities, we see amazing local resilience. For decades, the survival of these temples has relied on just a few dedicated crusaders fighting a really lonely battle. It started with A.K. Sinha publishing that first report back in 1979. Then you have incredible individuals like Goddess Mauliksha, an ex-serviceman now in his 80s who literally spent the royalties from his own books just to maintain the temples. In 2003, a journalist named Krishnananda Bandopati stepped in, starting an NGO to gather funds. Their tireless work finally brought national attention in 2015, earning state honors and even getting the site featured in India's Republic Day parade.
However, recognition hasn't magically solved everything. Listen to this quote from Krishnananda Bandopati from 2018. Today we have funds and the temples have undergone conservation, but there's not enough tourism. A few people who visit the village come for religious purpose and don't care much about the art and architecture. That highlights a really tragic disconnect. Even with recent conservation funds, the site struggles. The visitors who do make the difficult trek are almost exclusively there for religious purposes, to pray at the active shrines. They often completely overlook the priceless 17th century art crumbling right in front of them. This presents a major ethical hurdle for us as historians. How do we foster an appreciation for the heritage itself alongside the living religion?
Class, I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative question to ponder. Maluti is a testament to incredible human and artistic achievement, born from mud and myth. Yet it sits in a region that has faced intense modern struggles. As we strive to uncover and preserve our shared human past, how do we protect fragile, irreplaceable history when the present environment surrounding it remains so fractured? It's a massive challenge that goes far beyond the walls of this classroom. Thank you so much for joining me on this dig today. Keep exploring and always keep questioning the layers of history right beneath your feet.